quick introduction to myself and our panelists here. I've been with eBay Inc. for over 8 years, 2 years with Magento. And part of my role at Magento is trying to find partners such as the folks on our panel that are trying to use Magento Enterprise in new and innovative ways, and also taking our product into new verticals beyond just B2C retail, right? So part of my job is going out and sourcing a lot of these, finding these innovative use cases.
Thanks, Vincent. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Magento and Vincent in particular for inviting myself and my fellow panelists here to speak to you today. We hope that you get a lot of value out of this conversation over the next 40, 50 minutes. Just as Vincent mentioned, my name is Brad Martell. I've been with the Xeon company for about 4 years. I predominantly have responsibility for their sales and marketing. There's more about me in the bio if you want to learn about it. Not that exciting, but might give you a little bit of an additional background on myself prior to Xeon. I've sat in similar positions to some of you, so that's my background. A little bit more about Xeon, real quick. We're a gold partner. We've been aligned with Magento for a number of years, even before they were known as Magento back in the Varian days. We have roughly 250 deployments on the Magento platform, focusing pretty heavily on enterprise, but we did start out on the community edition as well, but now we predominantly work within the enterprise platform. 10-year-old company, 300 employees, 50 plus Magento developers, 15 of whom are certified. And as Vincent had mentioned, roughly 65% of our business comes from B2B or B2B2C. So that's really going to be a lot of the focus that you hear from me today is relative to that particular vertical. The remaining percentage, 35% or so, does come from B2C, but I would say our comfort zone is truly in that B2B environment. So one of the questions that we were asked to answer is why Magento for the B2B vertical? And you know, there's a lot of answers to that question, but I'm going to kind of focus on the 3 or 4 that I think most commonly resonate with our vertical. So I would say kind of first and foremost, and this was covered very much within the general session and in the last breakout here, is really the feature set, I think, out of the box that Magento brings to the table. But when you look at the broader community of the Magento environment and what you are able to have access to, as evidenced by the 3 gentlemen sitting to my right, people who build platforms very tightly connected to the Magento platform. You know, you look at that broader community, and if you can't find something out of that feature set that comes out of Magento Enterprise today, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be able to go into that community or to a third-party platform provider and find what you're looking for. So that's my reason number 1. Number 2, I would say, is total cost of ownership. If you look at some of the clients that we work with on the slide, these are not small companies. They are rather large in nature, but they are also made up of what I would describe as small to mid-sized business units. So you look at a Brady, a 3M, a United Technologies, very large organizations, but they can be anywhere between a 10 or a $300 million division, some of which might be doing anywhere between $1 and maybe $100 million of revenue online. So when you look at what Magento offers those folks, it's a highly scalable solution that accommodates that $300 million division, but it also accommodates and doesn't overwhelm that that $10 million division that's maybe only doing $1 million online today. So that total cost of ownership is critical within that B2B vertical. The other thing that I would say is the extensibility. The Magento Enterprise platform and how easily it is integrated and extended to the common ERP systems that we are working with on a daily basis. It's unparalleled, in our opinion, in its ability to map table structure to table structure within an Epicor, an SAP, or an Infor. So we find that through the integration services layer that we've created, we can quickly, easily, and efficiently integrate the Magento Enterprise platform to pull relevant content out of an ERP system. So those would really be my top 3 reasons as to why we have partnered with Magento and selected that platform as a foundational element in our offering. I often get the question about what makes B2B unique. And there's a lot of answers to that question too. But there is a certain amount of nuance to the B2B vertical, which is not commonly found in B2C. And so what I tried to depict in this graphic, this infographic that we put up here, it's some of that nuance. And so when you kind of look at it closely, and I'm not going to go through every one of the color bars there, but what you see there, and you can start to draw the lines between, is what is data that resides in an ERP system versus what are those things that don't relatively or naturally reside in an ERP platform. And very often the competitive landscape that we're going up against is that internal community that just wants to bolt on the commerce module for fill in the blank ERP solution. And so there's some real limitations with doing that, both in terms of cost, IT dependency, and so, and really what I would say more often than not, and you're gonna hear some of these other guys talk about it, is just what I would call a general inflexibility in what we refer to as the B2C-talization of the B2B customer. So all of us are B2C customers, and that's where our experiences get formed. But for that B2B client that's trying to extend an ERP version of commerce, it doesn't often look like that. It looks like a green screen that had some color added to it, and that was about it. So that's a critical aspect of this, and something that I think I'll get into a little bit in some of the case study examples that we talk about. So when you continue to look at that slide and see custom catalogs, robust dealer locators, the cross-sell, upsell capabilities, these are all things that are just native to Magento. And so bolted on top of that ERP system, I really think you have kind of a best-of-breed solution there. So the first kind of case study that I wanted to highlight is a company, a very unsexy company, sells power tools to construction groups. So we bolted Magento onto the Eclipse, Epicor Eclipse ERP. And there's two things that I wanted to highlight here. One is the customer's customer wanted to be able to track spend per job. And so they wanted to also be able to set budgets per job. So through admin and through just leveraging the customizable capabilities of the admin panel within Magento, we were able to give those admin rights to the customer's customer so that they could come in and say, this is a product set that can go to this job, this is their monthly budget, and alert me if it's going to go beyond that. So that was one particular piece of functionality. And then the other that I wanted to highlight was this quick order pad capability. Very common in multi-channel where you find two different types of customers. Some people are navigating to find what they want. Others have a catalog and they want to come in and quickly key in part numbers, enter quantity, transact, and be gone. Well, the particular challenge that this customer had is that they have over 200,000 SKUs, 80 vendors, and despite their best efforts to dedupe the manufacturing part numbers, they did want the customers to be able to either enter in their part number or the manufacturer part number. And so often there could be duplicates, and that was creating a number of returns. So basically what we did on the next slide, kind of leveraging the digital asset ability, or the ability to manage images within Magento and create dynamic CSS, is that we created a expandable quick order pad. So when you entered in that part number, it visually brought up an image and also a short description of what it was, and it virtually eliminated that challenge that they were having with people ordering one part number but getting something totally different.
Right. So Brett, I think as you start getting into a lot of the features, what is one of the things that stood out with Magento Enterprise that you said, you know what, as I'm building these B2B sites, this is the one thing that really differentiates what I bring to the table versus all the other platforms?
Sure. Expanding a little bit upon the TCO, I would say, Vincent, it's also time to deploy. Mm-hmm. So we talked about the total cost of ownership, but really that time to deploy and get a customer up and running was another critical aspect of this. So this particular example, Nefco, is a really great example mm-hmm. of that, where they wanted to build custom catalogs and very specifically tailored sites to their customer set based on login. And so that was something that I also felt was a huge differentiator and something that we see pretty consistently in our B2B customer base is that quick and easy way to set up a custom catalog for a specific either individual customer or customer segment, which Magento handles really well out of the box with their ability to delineate customer segments.
Great. You know, I think as you start looking at some of these names, as you know, Nick and everyone starts talking about their solutions as well, some of the companies that are using, you know, Magento in a B2B format, these are well-known names, these are large organizations. Has performance and scalability, you know, been raised as a, you know, a topic in your discussions? And, you know, what have you done in some of these deployments? You know, you talk about 200,000 SKUs, you know, transaction numbers, you know, that are high up there. You know, just your perspective on how you deployed some of these guys.
Yeah, this is a generalized statement, but I think it's, you know, as generalized statements are generally accurate. I think most of the detractors that I would say, and most of what I will describe as a myth around performance and scalability issues that you hear in the community or blogosphere, if you drill in on the root cause or the foundation of why there is that dissatisfaction, we have found typically didn't choose a partner with a level of experience that was necessary to really effectively implement the solution. Went with a hosting provider that didn't have a Magento hosting practice and went kind of for the low cost option. And then, you know, I would say that people that sometimes, and this is a little bit more of a unique situation, but I would say people who are having their CSRs, and you'll find this, we have found that the customer service reps are working within the Magento platform rather than the ERP because they find it easier and quicker to get things done. Right. And so we found that, you know, as we started to interrogate internal IPs, a lot of the performance issues was because the entire customer service team was in it all day, every day. And so we had to set up separate environments. So just a few things that we've kind of learned to kind of dispel that. But this next customer that I'm going to show, and I don't want to jump or cut you off or jump ahead of you, but these guys are doing well over $50 million a year, have over 300,000 SKUs, and we're getting sub 2-second page load with them. Wow. So, you know, I generally disagree that Magento is not a scalable solution. I think, you know, with the right set of circumstances, it absolutely is.
Great, thank you, Brad. So I think as we, you know, transition it off to Nick, you're going to start seeing some of the recurring themes around, you know, the flexibility of Magento Enterprise, the customization abilities of Magento Enterprise that, you know, as Nick's organization has been able to take it and build a procurement system out of it. You know, you think of procurement, you think of SAP, Ariba, you know, these old incumbents. They've been around 15, 20 years, and really innovation has not happened, at least on the front end side. I don't know how many of you have used a procurement system. We have one at eBay. I think it's SAP. I have never logged into it. I am terrified because I'm afraid that I might be buying something that is $10,000. It's just unintuitive and just really a bear to use. So I think as Nick starts talking about what they're doing, you're going to start seeing how he's been able to transform this, you know, what we call the B2B environment into more of a consumer-friendly experience. Nick? Thanks,
Vincent. So BuyerQuest is an organization that built a procurement software solution based on Magento Enterprise Edition. What I'm going to do is give you a little bit of history of the procurement space and see how BuyerQuest fits into that space. So the first thing I'm going to show you is some of the players in our space. So we're talking about Oracle, SAP, Ariba, Coupa. These are serious organizations that have a lot of backing behind them, so it's no small feat for BuyerQuest to come with a software solution. Now, what we think these guys have done wrong is they've built ERP solutions, added e-procurement solutions on top of them, so what you end up with is an extended ERP solution instead of a consumer-facing solution. So I'll go in a little bit more about the history of how that's happened and how these systems have evolved. So around 1995, e-procurement organizations the goal was to consolidate suppliers and drive cost savings in the organization. So you buy many things, but you buy it from many different suppliers, you're not getting that cost savings. So you sign a national agreement with the supplier, and then you want that supplier to be the person that you purchase everything from. So in order to do that, your end users have to use this system to find what they need and procure it. So that was the goal. So what happened was ERP systems started adding e-procurement modules. And the goal was that you would drive this savings. And I'm going to give you an example of what some of those look like today. So one of our customers has 3 million items in a list like this. So imagine trying to find what you need in a list of 3 million items that look like that. So very poor product information, no searching ability, very difficult to find what you need. So what ends up happening is your end users don't use the system. They take their Amex, they go down to the Home Depot, and they buy what they need. So BuyerQuest focused on the consumer first, and then we build procurement functionality around that consumer platform that's based on Magento. The next thing that happened was punch-out catalogs. So there was this poor experience and low adoption. So suppliers start saying, well, we'll build a site for you. You'll connect to it from your e-procurement system. And you're going to use OCI round trip or CXML, these standards that were developed to connect to this site. So what will happen is your user will come to your site. They'll say, I want office supplies. They do a punch-out connection to get to Office Depot. They fill up a cart, and they bring it back into your system. And that's a punch-out round trip connection. The good was that there's a better user interface for end users. So the supplier sites that are punch-out enabled look great, and people can find what they need. The issue is that search stops working. So if I have 2 office supplies suppliers and I search in my eProc, I can't find the items across both of the suppliers. Now there's some solutions out there, some level 2 catalogs and screen scraping and other things that other providers will tell you that can make it work for punch-out catalogs. We don't believe that that works. And the reality is that our sister company is punch-out catalogs. So we also build punch-out sites. We just believe that there's an inherent problem with them for an organization that wants to get all their procurement in one place and really drive this savings. So to give you an example of what some punch-out sites look like, they look better than those lists of items. This is an example of a few of our customers. But what you'll notice is the search bar might not always be in the same place. The category filters might not always work the same way. Now we drive all this stuff on Magento Enterprise as well, so across our punch-out sites, they look pretty similar. They have different skins and themes, but the problem is your users start getting all these different UIs. So first they couldn't find it, now they can get to it, but they've got to learn all these different systems. So it starts to become very complicated. If you want office supplies, you do this. If you want this, you do that. So what BuyerQuest does is brings all of this content into a single Magento-driven platform. So it's a multi-supplier marketplace, and we follow Amazon's approach. So Amazon, when you're getting data from your suppliers, you give them tools to load their content into their system. We actually think that we've added more flexibility than Amazon has in terms of catalogs. So what we've done is build an ETL layer so that our suppliers can't use the excuse that I don't have development time to build that data feed. I can't get it into your format. So we say, okay, what format do you have? And we use our ETL layer to map it into the format that we need. So a lot of times when we roll out these solutions, we hear pushback from suppliers saying that I don't want to play in your marketplace. And what we tell our customers is that they're your suppliers. These are the goods that you're procuring. You deserve to control what happens. Another thing that happens in punch-out sites that I'll mention quickly is that cross-selling. If you're a supplier, you know that someone wants a Bic pen, you're going to cross-sell 10 Bic pens. You might cross-sell something that's not on contract. So in a BuyerQuest world, you control what's a cross-sell and an upsell in your environment. You allow suppliers to make recommendations, but you review those and determine what you want your end users to see. So some of the things that we've done to Enterprise 112. So we've changed the checkout process to be e-procurement-like. So you don't pay with a credit card. You apply an accounting string. Based upon your accounting string, there's an approval chain that's built. And as everyone approves the order, then that order gets broken out by suppliers in individual purchase orders. So there's a different kind of checkout flow and approval engine, lots of things that have been modified in the way Magento works. But what we found is that starting with a consumer commerce platform, we go into clients and we say, fuzzy search or type ahead search, and they're just blown away. How do you do that? Well, because we're based on an e-commerce platform. We started with B2C, and we started building procurement around that. Thank you.
As you guys are listening to this, what these guys have been able to do, really, you start thinking about it in a B2C environment, right? We're all familiar with that. And at the end of the day, internal corporations, who are your users? They're consumers. So if you take that approach, I think there's a level of success that comes with it. Luis, why don't you go ahead and jump in and talk about what you guys are doing.
Great, thanks, Vincent, and good morning. My name is, I didn't expect my mugshot to stay there that long, sorry. My name is Luis Colon, and I'm the Director of Research and Development at a company called CDS Global. We have been managing subscriptions across the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia, and the company has been around for 40 years. We're owned by the Hearst Corporation, which is one of the largest media companies in the US. And what we're gonna talk about here is what we've done with Magento, and what we essentially did was build an enterprise-grade subscription management platform on top of Magento Enterprise. So you probably are all familiar with, if you've gone to any website out there, and I agree with John this morning that a lot of the newer, the bigger brands are gonna be brands that are completely created on the internet. And you see in a lot of the sites and a lot of the brands, even if they're not retail brands, that the way that they choose to monetize their product or service is some variation of a pricing plan. It can be fairly simplistic if you're a user of, for example, Dropbox, which is a shared storage service. You'll have your free, basic, and premium levels for that to use Dropbox itself, and that is a very simplistic subscription model, as well as you probably are all familiar with Netflix as a subscription model as well. But they can get very complicated. One of the examples that I use here is GitHub, where they have packages and levels that are quite complex. So there's a big interest out there, not only by sites that are not retailing, like content management sites, but even also retailing sites where they're looking at building clubs or membership models with their customers as well, to come up with a subscription model to actually help monetize their website. And by the success that these sites have had and across a lot of verticals, the customers are not only conditioned to be flexible and accepting of these offers, but these numbers are increasing. The data that I show here is from a Forrester study that was done a couple of years ago, but the good news about that is that as the years have gone by, the popularity of these subscription services has gone up significantly. So what did we end up doing? What we ended up doing was taking our expertise in subscriptions, and rather than building an extension or a module on top of Magento, we pretty much took a very open-ended approach to take Magento as a technology platform and build a lot of features that have to do with selling, promoting subscriptions, helping accountants and financial people properly account for the earning and deferring on income or liability, as well as building enough features so that you can use that platform as the way that you can verify when a customer tries to log into your club or use the private part of your site, whether or not that customer is entitled by their subscription level or by the subscription purchase to use that part of the site. Rather than being recurring payment centric, this is a question that I've gotten a couple of times here on the exhibit area and in the conference in general. What makes eHub a lot different what other companies are providing in terms of recurring solutions is that their recurring solutions are typically tied to the fact that they already have your payment information, so they'll just put out there another payment. Well, that's a big chunk of what subscriptions are all about. But also, there's a lot of parts of a subscription and parts of subscription marketing and audience development that go well beyond managing just the recurring payment. As an example is, one of the easiest ways to get customers to use your product or service or website is to give them a free trial. And you want to have a flexible way to say, I'm going to allow these customers to have a free trial for 2 weeks or perhaps a couple of months. Some customers may want to have a trial at a very reduced price, and then you're looking at ways to turning that free customer into a paid customer. In many cases, as time goes on, you want to upsell that customer and say, well, it'll be $12.95 for the first year, but then later on, we'll charge you $14.95. Or you want to get customers to go from monthly to yearly service in a fairly frictionless way. And that's where a lot of these services that are very recurring payment centric, you can tell when they're not flexible, because the audience creators and the people that are trying, the marketers themselves, are trying to come up with very creative experiments when it comes to what to sell, at what level, and how to transition that. See, I already get smiles from the audience saying, yes, I felt the pain of that. So those are the kinds of things that set what we've done apart, other than the fact that we essentially, rather than trying to look at it as just a set of features on top of Magento, it's a whole product and platform built on Magento. So here's an example of a pricing plan or a subscription plan that you'll see on many websites. Again, if you look at Netflix's, it's kind of like one subscription, $7.95 a month. Sirius XM will have something like that as well. But think more of the complex subscription that is your cell phone service, or that is your DirecTV service, where you have, in the cell phone example, minutes and SMS messages and data plans, and on the directory side, you know, whether or not you buy HBO or Cinemax or Showtime, etc. In those cases, not only do you have the subscription pricing plan levels, but within each level, you actually have individual subscriptions. So that starts getting even more complicated. If you go back to the DirecTV example, the way that you may want to earn money on HBO might be completely different than the way that you earn money on the Fox's soccer package, for example. So a lot of these traditional subscription models that have been built on e-commerce before do not account for those complexities. And that's where a company like ours, which has a lot of expertise on how these subscriptions can be very complicated, that's where we can contribute some really innovative ideas here.
So Luis, to be sensitive to time as well, can you focus on talking about how you did the evaluation of Magento and why you chose Magento of all the platforms that are out there to build this really telco-grade billing and subscription system? Mm-hmm. Take us through that thought process, and then touch on what you've been able to do to build on top of Enterprise.
Sure. In terms of our evaluation, we came from already being in e-commerce for several years, and we came from using and doing products and services on top of commercial platforms. Specific to us was Westward Commerce, and a few years ago, about 4 years ago or so, we were looking at where are we going to go next. And a big part of that is using open source software that we know that we have access to the source code, that we can modify, that we can use the right modules. And across an evaluation that we did back then, we were looking at things like PrestaShop and OS Commerce and perhaps 6 or 8 other open source stacks. It struck us that the Magento stack, it's built on probably the more flexible data model out there. Yes, it's very complex, and developers will tell you that. Many developers, when they start learning Magento, they're not fans of EAV or anything like that. But the reality is that once you embrace that data concept, and once you start having to extend it, Magento's in a unique position, even across other platforms that have been developed since Magento, to be very flexible in that sense. So the open source nature of Magento, the very strong data component, and then as a couple of my panelists have mentioned, that just the flexibility of the features around catalog have been very important as well.
Great.
So that's from a standpoint of selection. Kinds of things that we've done, I have a couple of examples. We've taken a lot of the ideas of Magento's product types and extended them and created custom product types. And that's something that is relatively easy to do in Magento. And extending these product types, we also go out there and put custom attributes. But very quickly, if you're a Magento user, you start realizing that entering information for a single product, You have to go through a lot of screens, enter a lot of attributes. It becomes very time consuming. So we came up with a parent-child relationship where if you see the fields there, the fields that are green are actually inheriting from a default parent that we created in advance. So now creating the child promotions or the child offers becomes a lot simpler. Subscriptions in particular are not necessarily the easiest thing to understand. So rather than trying to explain to people billing cycles and billing plans and everything, we try to help you enter your term using natural language. So if you see in the highlight there, you would send a subscription that says, I'm gonna charge $2.95 per month, and use that natural language to kind of like verify, yes, this is what I'm setting up, this is what I expect to sell. Finally, if you go back to the example of the cell phone service, many people sometimes hesitate to change to perhaps a better cell phone plan and everything because it's so darn complex to understand. If I change to that plan, do they start charging me now for roaming or for data service and everything? Just because there's a lot of components there. Well, we've taken a lot of the features that we built and the expertise that we built, and we've gotten to the point that we can tell a customer, no matter if it's a single subscription or a package, no matter if you're going upgrade or downgrade, no matter if you're going from yearly to monthly, we're gonna be able to use whatever your credits have been. We're gonna notice if you've used a trial term or not. We're gonna notice if you have monies in your stored credit, and we're gonna let you do that transition just with one click and with a lot of information to know exactly what you had and what you're going to have forward.
Great, thanks, Luis. And then last but not least, truly out of the mode of how someone is using Magento Enterprise to power something really cool is MGO. And I'll let Misak run through what MGO is and what they're doing and how they're using Magento.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Misak Melikian. I'm a lead engineer at MGO. First, I'd like to say it's a great privilege to be here and to be speaking at this event. And I'm proud to be representing MGO. So what is MGO? MGO is the people-friendliest digital entertainment service. It was formed in 2011 by Technicolor in association with DreamWorks Animation Studios. It's an application that allows users to stream or download the movies they enjoy on a number of devices. On a number of devices that they may have. It's a truly cross-platform service, and it's not only available on computers, tablets, and mobile devices, but it also TVs, Blu-ray players, set-top boxes, and so forth. And in 2013, this year, it will be preloaded on over 30 million devices. For example, if you bought a Vizio TV recently, you'd notice our purple button on the remote. And we have the latest content from all the major studios, networks, and independents. So any of the movies that come out from these major studios, we usually get them even before they go out on DVDs. So I'll kind of highlight some of the reasons why we chose Magento Enterprise and then go a little bit deeper into how we use it. So as the other panelists spoke about the great flexibility of the catalog, one of the features that we use is the customer segmentation and targeting, and also the promotions and offers piece. So where do we use Magento? There are a few key interactions with Magento in the MGO ecosystem. And for example, when users sign up, they eventually end up in Magento. Also, when we get the content, the movies, TV shows, etc., from studios, they are stored in Magento as well. And we use the Magento catalog to store the title, description, and pricing information. And we have we have customized the catalog to fit our needs. So with these two key pieces of information together, the user data and the catalog data together, it enables our marketing team to go in and create promotions and also create customer segments to target for those promotions. Now, what they use is the catalog price rules and the shopping cart price rules, which are out of the box there for Magento Enterprise. And we've also customized those features for our needs. We've added different conditions and different actions to allow our marketing team to really be able to target the people they need and create the promotions they need. Some of the other features that I haven't put a slide for that we use Magento for are the transaction and reporting. And we also use the newsletter feature and user wish lists. Now let's get a little bit more technical. Our installation of Magento is fairly straightforward. We have Apache web server up front, MySQL database in the back, and Memcache to speed things up. However, our use of Magento is fairly unconventional because we don't use a storefront, and most of our interaction with Magento happens through API calls. The limited use of the interface is the marketing team going in through the admin interface and using it. However, the other interactions, for example, when we get the content from studios or the user registrations, they go through a custom routing script that we have that analyzes and validates the requests that come into Magento. It will check for user authentication, roles, etc., and then redirect them to the custom modules that we have. We have a number of different custom modules, and the two main ones are customer and product. And we have followed the Magento standards and best practices for creating these modules, so they're very maintainable. And it was also easy to upgrade to the latest version of Magento Enterprise. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Misak. And I know we're running pretty over time, so I do want the panelists to, in under 140 characters or less, leave some parting tips and tricks, because each one of you have used Magento Enterprise in a very different way. Just tell us, what are some parting thoughts on how to effectively use the enterprise platform? Brad?
Well, I think that's going to be very customer specific, Vincent, but I think, generally, if I was going to answer that question, I would say that, focus on what Magento does really well out of the box. Don't overthink trying to customize the code. I think a lot of people, and you heard some of the prior panelists, trying to create within the community version what's readily available in the enterprise extension. Mm-hmm. So just stick with what it does out of the box, rely on the community for the rest.
Great, thank you. Nick?
I would say that one of the main things is to control quality of your code. So make sure that your development team knows what they're doing. When you're going to highly customize the platform, you can end up in bad situations pretty quickly if your developers aren't clear as the best ways to use Magento. So I would definitely recommend that. I would also echo Brad's statement that we should look at what the platform can already do when we think about a need. So look at what it can do, understand the features of the platform, look in the community, and at last resort, build your own custom module. So a lot of times you can jump ahead by finding something that's already been completed out there.
Great, thank you. And Luis, 140 characters or less, please.
The thing that I tell people is a Magento project is a complex project. There's a lot of features there, and that translates into complexity. So if you're not practicing agile methodologies in your organization, especially in development, especially when it comes to automated testing, but even so on the business side of the organization, this will be a good time to do it even before you start engaging into very complex Magento projects. It helps you manage your risk, and it really makes a big difference in terms of the success and dealing with Magento projects in general. So,
great. Misak, any parting thoughts?
I'll ditto everything the other panelists said. And one key thing that I want to say is as long as you follow the best practices and standards set in Magento, even when you're customizing the code, it's fairly easy to maintain, and it's easier for the developers, and it's easier for the product managers to be able to come up with new solutions, and it's an overall better experience.
Great, thank you. And thank you, audience, for attending. Panelists, thank you again. This is great. I think most of us are around the show for the next couple of days. If you do have any questions, please let us know. And hope everyone has a great Imagine.